live yet?
Up out my forest, they looked into my room. I was only 4 years old, I didn't know what to do. I was playing muscle man with a friend, I think the dude was named Vernon. He saw the M16s and stepped away from the curtains, and they kicked in the door. This is the DEA. They saw my father, and then they fucked up his face, and they cruised up the stairs with their M16s. They busted into my room and scared the fuck out of me. I saw my mama, I said, what the fuck's happening? She said, we're busted. I said, what the fuck does that mean? She said, for growing the weed under the basement floor. I said, the plant that dad smoked. She said, but there's more. They're gonna take up our house. They're gonna take all your toys. They're gonna take away data. They're gonna put them in bars. They're gonna take all our money. They're gonna take all your cake. The next day was my birthday. I'm not being fake. These motherfuckers, they're called the DEA. They're called the CIA. They're called the NSA. And today, they listen to everything that you say, but you don't give a fuck. You just go about your day. You're not a file on everyone, and we pretend that we're dumb. We sell all our metadata. It's worth more than a sum, but they don't give us back none because they know that we're numb. We got some stupid motherfuckers that just want to be safe, and they'll give up their freedoms, man. They'll give up their say. They'll spend $1 million on education just to join up the slaves. You're not American. And they'll give up their freedoms, man. They'll give up their say. They'll spend
You're not American.
Just to join up the slaves.
Hey, everybody.
You're not American.
My name is Manuente Reme, and this is Dangerous Thoughts. I'm an actor, producer, writer, director. I starred in shows like Star Trek Voyager, and gosh darn it, I did the last season of One Tree Hill. Isn't that amazing? Was for me. I had a lot of fun. I have a movie opposite Dermot Mulroney coming out this year called Ruthless, and a cool movie called Do Justice opposite Kellen Lutz, Jeff Fahey, and Efren Ramirez from Napoleon Dynamite. Classic. Come on. He played Pedro. Who hasn't seen Napoleon Dynamite? Had a good time working.
Me, I haven't.
Oh, my co-host this week is Chris Leftwich, who's right over there. Right over there.
Oh,
right,
there.
Oh, yeah,
there we go.
That
Right
way.
there you go.
And he's taken over for my other co-host. What's his name? I'm just kidding. Tyson Strauss, who isn't with us tonight. And you know what? I love Tyson, but he went AWOL on us, and we're all kind of concerned for him because this is not a show he misses. We've done countless episodes of the show, and he's never missed the program. Hopefully, he's stuck in traffic, abducted by aliens, something safe, instead of dead, which would be horrible. So, Tyson, please let us know you're okay. Give us a text. Chris is going to take over for you tonight.
I'll try.
Later tonight, or maybe right now, I don't know, because I don't watch the YouTube, even though you should be watching on YouTube. If you're watching on Facebook or one of my other channels, watch on YouTube because, they pay us. This is our Discord, and it'll be coming below. And what's really cool is we finally got a cool Discord. We're also on X and Facebook and YouTube and friends. And this is this is my friend and my family's fun little YouTube show called Dangerous Thoughts. But we want it to be not a little YouTube show, but a big YouTube show because we think it's important. Every week we pick a gnarly topic or two, and we think people should be fucking speaking about, and we take it as far as we know how. People in my business don't do this shit, when we discover something important politically or sociologically, scientifically, even our agents and our managers tell us to shut up, don't have an opinion, you're an actor.
That's right. Not allowed.
Safer for your career. Well, fuck that. If being an actor or a producer means I'm a silent moron, I'm not down for it. I'm not down for, and that's been that way for a long time, even before social media. So,
it was that way back in the 20s.
Yeah, right. So I'm making the rules. What was I saying? Oh yeah,
you do an excellent job at breaking the rules.
Thank you, Chris. I try hard. We want the show to be big, and we want to create an entertaining talk show, and we need a team. We've got a great team, but we need to build this show. So we're looking for you to be a part of it. And seriously, we're looking for you to be a part of the show. So if you are a writer, a comedian, a producer, a VFX artist, a graphic artist, if you have any ideas on formatting, what you'd like to see on the show, we've been on for like 6 months now, 8 months. What do you think, Cassie? Live?
About
I don't
6
know.
months.
Yeah.
Video wise, but this show started on X, Twitter, and you've been doing it it's been at least 2 years now?
Well, at least a year.
Almost.
A year and a half
It's
on
almost 2 years.
Okay,
Yeah.
I was thinking it was getting close.
Yeah, but for the live show, it's we're just creeping up on that half a year mark, I think. Maybe a little longer, but if you're any of those people and you like to see the show become a better show, or what job you'd like to have on the show, we want you on the team. We want you here. We want you with us. What we're ultimately going for here is a tightly formatted show that wakes people up, makes them think outside the box, trips them the fuck out, and most importantly, we get a laugh out of everybody and we have some fun. So seriously, we're all going to die relatively soon. So let's have some fun and let's join the production team of Dangerous Thoughts. If you're into it, write me at
That's a hell of a pitch.
at gmail.com. Well, we are, we're just, we don't live very long. We're humans. We've got this, it's a blink. Seriously, you're a baby and you're like goo goo gaga. And then you go to school and you're like, oh, I'm immortal. I'm 20. Things are great. And then you're 40 and you're like, my knees hurt. And then suddenly you're 70 and you're like, my kids are dicks and they're old and then you're dead. So,
dude, I swear 30 seems like it was, I don't know, 6 months ago.
Yeah, right. And it wasn't.
No, I'm 50.
16 years ago, 20 years ago for you.
Yeah, right.
So if you want to join the team, any ideas that you might have, and if you're a professional or a non-professional that just wants to get in on the action, this is YouTube, by the way. Help us out. Call us, write us at monointereme@gmail.com. Tell us how you think you could help. Also, join our Discord. If you want to be a guest on tonight's show, you can write us here at discord.gg//DTFam. I'll say that again. Discord.g as in Gus, .g as in gasoline, /DTFam. There's a link we post every week to help you quickly get on our guest list so you can join us live during our question and answer period, and you can talk to our guest, talk to us, talk to me, talk to Left Witch over there.
Over here.
And you can talk to Left Witch whenever you want if he gives you his number. But join us during our question and answer portion of the show. You can also write my producer at Subscript Pirate on X and tell him you want to be a part of the question and answer portion, and you will be live with us tonight. Oh my God, that's exciting!
Down there he is.
Holy shit!
Yeah,
right. Oh my, that'll be good. Also,
oh my.
I am a real producer. I really am. I produced 3 indie films: Benjamin Troubles, Fifth Passenger, Hell on the Border.
Oh, I didn't know you were a producer on Hell on the Border. I thought you were just an actor.
Oh, are you serious? No, man. That was
just an actor.
Just an actor.
That was.
No, I didn't know. I knew you produced the other 2.
No, Hell on the Border. Ron Perlman, me, David Jesse, and what was the other guy we hired? Frank Grillo. Cool guy.
Yeah. That was a hell of a movie.
Yeah.
That's really good. Anybody that hasn't seen it, I highly recommend it.
Well, we only went 1.5 million over budget, so I hope we did okay.
It's not bad.
It's not good.
Well, yeah.
And my biggest project to date is a television show called Star Crew that we need a few more, or maybe one big investor to finish the pitch for the mega networks and streaming services. It's a project 5 years in the making, and it's badass. So picture Shaun of the Dead mixed with Galaxy Quest, but a rated R comedy adventure TV series. Picture The Boys, but sci-fi. All in a story that is a heartfelt story held together by an estranged father and son, polar opposites trying to find family in an interdimensional time travel comedy. It's fantastic. 5 years in the making. If you're one of those lucky few Americans with some extra cash flow to invest, I promise you, me and many other Hollywood types think that we've got a project that's a winner. So if you're interested in hearing more about who is involved, what it'll take to sell the show to Netflix, Hulu, Max, Apple TV, etc., Electric, Universal, Paramount, all the big boys, or all the big dogs. I'm a big dog. I want to be a big dog.
I'm really
call
looking
me.
forward to seeing it.
Thank you, man. And people will see the pilot no matter what, because we started on Kickstarter and we made an excellent pilot. But it's going to be done around April 2024, and that's when we're going to pitch the big dogs. What's up?
That's not far, man. That's only 5 months, which means it'll be here in 2 weeks.
April 2024, man. April. That's months. We got 4 months, or it was 6 months. Anyway, that's the spiel. My spiel will get so much better, especially if a few of you talented writers out there join the program and help us make this a formatted show. Also, join our Discord family. I told you how to do that. It'll be scrolling across the screen during our program. And if we build a big team and we make this show dangerously thoughtful, what's it called again, Chris?
Dangerous Thoughts.
Oh yeah, if we make Dangerous Thoughts better than it is now, more people will watch, and more people will think, and more people will laugh, and more people will wake up to what's going on.
Hey, do you have your lemonade in a jar?
In the neighborhood. No, I don't have any lemonade tonight. I've got A&W root beer. No,
it looked like it had lemonade.
Cream soda.
Oh, okay.
Awesome. Cream soda. Now on with the series. Tonight we have Jeff Davis, who's written many books. One of them, Weird Washington. I think the other one was called Weird Oregon. I think he's written like 8 other books, but I'm not gonna plug all 10 of this man's books. But he's a stud.
Links in the description.
Yeah. Thank you, producer. Thank you, Brett. Cassie. What? I don't even know people's names. So anyway, Jeff Davis is an anthropologist for the U.S. Forest Service. He worked when you worked deeply in that subject, and even now share some stories. Oh man, I'm already on to the questions. Sorry. Tonight we have Jeff Davis, who's written many books like Weird Washington, Weird Oregon. Jeff is a consultant on Alaskan killer Bigfoot, which is super cool because I'm a big Bigfoot fan. I'm a big Bigfoot fan. I like big feet. Okay.
And I cannot lie.
And I can't not lie. I like big feet, and I can't not lie. It's true. He's an archaeologist. He's a historian, and he's just an all-around badass of the strange and the paranormal. Here is his ugly ass. Just kidding. He's a beautiful man. Here's Jeff. Here's Jeff Davis. Hi, Jeff. How are you?
Rolling in the aisles.
Yeah. That was probably that. I don't have my co-host tonight. I've got Chris Leftwich standing in. My co-host usually, keeps me on the straight and narrow. And
you should know I'm not going to do that.
No, I know you're not going to do that. So it's, So first of all, Jeff, you've written all these books on these strange topics that a lot of Americans don't pay attention to, and I think they should. Especially, let's start with Bigfoot. You're a consultant for Alaskan Killer Bigfoot, the show, which is a bitchin' show. I think you guys might have a season 2 coming up. I don't know if they've announced it or not yet. But what did you do for that show, and how did you get into Bigfoot?
Two big this is one of these things where it's a really short question, but you're going to get a long answer.
That's what I want.
Well, okay, so interest in Bigfoot itself, himself, themselves. My bachelor's is in anthropology, the study of humanity, and I worked here in the Pacific Northwest doing archaeology in the Cascade Mountains, Washington side and Oregon, around the Columbia River Gorge. And that's part of Skamania County, which is kind of the center to a lot of people of a lot of Bigfoot sightings and things. And so there I was doing archaeology work, which basically in the 90s, it was, we have timber sales coming up, and we need all of the ologists, hydrologists, archaeologists, biologists to go into these areas with big trees where theoretically not very many people have been to, and we need to clear them to make sure there's nothing there for timber sales. So going up into these areas, in some cases, drive up to the end of the Forest Service road, get out, and then land navigate for about an hour to get to where they wanted to cut the timber, going cross country. And so I did that for several years, and and there all the time there were reports coming in, not a lot from our office, but civilians would come in and talk about it. And most of the employees, of course, were local hires, and they had family who had seen things happen. Skamania County many years ago voted themselves a Bigfoot free zone, where it's illegal to hunt Bigfoot in Skamania County, Washington. That's a local ordinance.
That's
And
cool.
yeah, of
Nice.
course, they passed the ordinance on April 1st, but it's still a law. So
Well, no,
yeah.
here's the thing. Look,
Yeah.
there's not in my mind, there's not a like a giant amount of evidence. That's a stupid word to use. An overwhelming amount of evidence for the existence of Bigfoot, but there have been a few different shows that I've seen that have shown me some camera footage. In fact, I just watched a show on Bigfoot. I don't remember what it was called, but it was a 2-hour long documentary. And there was these 3 guys that used to go up to this campground, and they would hear the knocks on the trees. They would hear the yells that Bigfoot is supposedly his calls.
Mhm.
And one time they even got so scared on one of their excursions up to this campground that they built between these 3 trees, they built sort of a safe room, and they had to get in the safe room, and Bigfoot or whatever it was that was out there that night got so close to the safe room, started pounding on the safe room, making the calls. And they had audio footage of all this stuff going on and video footage of all this stuff going on. And for me, it was like, okay, you could fake that. You could put guys out in the woods. You could make a scary scream. You could make this a scary video. But these guys loved this campground. They'd been going there for 20 years or something. It was like their spot.
Mhm.
And you could either make that video to scare people away from that spot, but that doesn't make any sense, because as soon as I saw it, I wanted to know exactly where that was. I wanted to take a trip up there. I wanted to see if I could have the experience that they had. And I just think that there's something to this this Bigfoot phenomenon. There's been too many sightings over the years for it to be nothing, you know?
Right.
Yeah, I agree with you. And sightings and stories and accounts go back a long way, centuries before mass media. And so that's also part and parcel of the whole anthropology end, cultural anthropology. And here in the Pacific Northwest, the U.S. government, even in the 1850s and 60s, they sent out naturalists. There's a guy named George Gibbs who gathered stories, talked to many local native folk, and collected some of their traditions in writing, and other anthropologists over the decades. So you can refer back to these stories. And when I say stories, I don't mean made up. I mean these oral traditions, these
Accounts.
people's
Yeah.
beliefs that were less tainted by modern society than they would be now, where you have a TV, radio, whatever, where stories get passed on. It takes on a life of its own. And these traditions, you were mentioning hearing the knocking sounds and the cries. And that some of that is right out of some of these anthropological journals where they're talking to people, because here in the Northwest, many of the people's traditions, it said it's not just one Bigfoot. It's not just one wild, hairy person of the forest. There were maybe two, perhaps more. One, like you would think of it, big, huge, tall, hairy. But there also was a smaller breed that were slightly smaller than humans, and those were the malevolent ones. Those were the ones who had these magic sticks, and they would hit trees with them, and they'd knock the trees over. The whole kind of like, if a tree falls in the woods, was it natural or was it the Skikiak who did it?
The Skikiak, is that was the name? That was the Native American name?
For one of the tribes, yeah, and I'm mispronouncing it badly, but
all right.
But that's as near as I can make is like Skikiak or Skikayak, and they also had the ability to imitate voices, but also like bird call, and people would when they could hear the birds out that weren't night birds, the parents would make sure their kids stayed in because they would like get hypnotized by some of these calls. So like the Pied Piper of Hamelin. And so this, you were asking what led me to be consulting with and for Alaskan Killer Bigfoot. This is part of it, is because I did archaeology work, and I read up on a lot of these anthropological journals. I thought it was a really good fit when the producer Brian Niffel contacted me.
So did I completely blow it and call you an archaeologist when you're actually an anthropologist?
Well, no, it's like the world of multiple hats. I worked and got paid as an archaeologist for the Forest Service, but Brian Niffel and Alaskan Killer Bigfoot paid me to be a historian and anthropologist.
Okay.
Nice.
All right. So tell me some stories. Tell me some first person, if you had any while you were out there. Some second person or third person stories of things that you've learned as a consultant for that show.
I have a question.
Some of the most interesting stories. Chris? And then you get your question, Chris.
Okay.
You look like Bigfoot. You're like flashing, and you've got purple and
dude, I got Sunday night football on, man.
Oh, okay, that's what's coming through this.
Yeah, Denver Broncos are playing.
Colors on you.
Yeah, Denver's playing Minnesota.
Bigfoot.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if there's a Bigfoot playing for one of those teams, because those guys are big.
Yeah, they
all
are.
right, so tell us some stories.
Okay, for me, not so much. When I was working for the Forest Service, I did not have a Bigfoot experience, but we had something that it's one of these things where you would think that somebody wrote it as a screenplay element. One of our employees, I think she was our comptroller, our finance person. One of her relatives was a guy named Datus Perry, and he'd been metaphorically hunting Bigfoot since like the 40s or 50s. And you're talking about evidence. His evidence was he had a cigar box full of scat, which is poop.
Yeah.
And he believed that it was all dropped by Bigfoot because he knew the difference
fecal
between
matter.
Yeah. And so he ended up having, that was his evidence, was he said, I'm saving this cigar box full of scat for when the technology gets to a point where we can analyze it and tell more. And
so he literally found Bigfoot poop.
He believed.
So he believed next to Bigfoot tracks, or
next to Bigfoot tracks.
Wow.
But one of the things too was,
did you get to see it?
I did briefly, and
is it
he
like
didn't let me hold it.
Poop? No, I don't want to. Yeah, is it like rabbit poop, or is it like
no? It was long
Bigfoot poops. I love
it.
That's
and
awesome.
which segues sideways into one of the world's oldest preserved pieces of poop was found in the city of York. They call it the Lloyd's Bank Viking turd. But back to Bigfoot.
When was that? When's the oldest piece of turd found?
That was found. They were excavating below. Lloyd's is a banking company. They were excavating below the Lloyd's Bank in the city of York, and they found out that the building was sinking because it was built on an old Viking era cesspool from about the year 1000 or so.
Huh.
And so they had to actually excavate that out and then put in fresh, strong supports. And it had been a cesspool, but somebody dug a little bit harder into the sidewall. And when somebody made a deposit, it fell onto that shelf, and it basically fossilized before getting covered over by the rest of it.
So
And
this
so
is the oldest known human
Poop.
fecal matter. Poop.
yeah, is a single unit. Yeah. And
Wow.
it's on display at various times in the Jorvik Viking Museum in York.
I love the Vikings. The Vikings. I'm a little bit. I have a little bit of Viking in me. In fact, I did this whole DNA thing, and I was related to Rollo back in.
Oh,
So yeah, I love the Vikings, and my girl's into them too. But where were we?
Yeah.
Okay, so stories. We were on
okay.
stories.
Anyway, one Datus got in trouble though because he was trying to open up some caves to increase Bigfoot habitat for the winter, and I think he was using like dynamite or something, and that was kind of a no-no. So that was where the closest in that part of my life where I came to. Now, when I was doing Alaskan Killer Bigfoot, I did not get to go out to Portlock. That is the town site that they were investigating where they encountered Nantinak. That's the native name for their wild person of the forest. But I talked to the guys, and they said that the longer they were there, the greater the number of incidents that happened. One of the guys kept a journal like of these odd and unusual things, and the first couple of days was like 10 incidents a day. He'd write it down. After about 3 weeks, 4 weeks, he just gave up the journal because it was like 30 or 40 weird things happened. This included things like they're there in their tents, or there was a building that they started out camping in, and they heard the sound of somebody walking around. And as hunters and guides, they could tell the difference between 4 feet and 2 feet as a bear as opposed to a human. Oh, sorry about that.
You can't do that on the show. We'll get kicked off.
Finger movements.
I'm sorry. I was talking to Leftwich. Leftwich is smoking marijuana, which is perfectly okay.
No.
But if you're smoking cigarettes, stop it. Get that off the camera. They'll kick us off for tobacco.
What for? Really?
Yeah, isn't that ridiculous? Anyway.
What would Sir
Bigfoot.
Walter Raleigh say?
Yeah, I know. Bigfoot smokes. Okay,
Of
so
course he does.
So what do you? All right, so I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, they had noises and the
Walking around the camp.
right, and going back as a pattern of behavior in the 1940s. One of the problems that the town that existed at the 1940s was a cannery town with a
head off and take one and then come back. People won't know.
Oh.
1940s. I'm sorry. Sir.
Was a cannery fishing town with 100 seasonal employees. It was people in, people out all the time. And one of the things that really drove them out of the town was there were high hills surrounding the town, and they not only did they have cries and screams and yells, but toward the end they had rocks, boulders rolling down the hills and banging into the houses, large logs being rolled down, and they would bounce off the houses and scare people. And then there was the screaming and the people being murdered. And so in the middle of the night, they just left.
Whoa. Yeah. So I know that the show is Alaskan Killer Bigfoot. So these creatures are actually, they've been known to kill people.
Yes, that was part and parcel what drove everybody out was, imagine this. You've got all these families, not just the guys working the factories, but their families. But on the days off, living close to the land, got to go hunting to get some meat. So various times hunting parties would go up into the hills, and sometimes, this is the 1940s, the guys wouldn't come back. They'd just go missing, only to have a couple of times after the rains, bodies would be found in the lagoon, like they were washed down the hills. and they
But
would
they were
be
just chucked in there,
and dismembered and broken up. And again, these days people can be skeptical, and I encourage that. But
yeah.
if you said, well, it must have been a bear, everybody then knew what it would look like to have somebody killed by a bear.
And what year are we talking about?
This is the I want to say like
About
42 to 49.
It sounds like they
18 or
were
19?
ambushed.
19.
Okay, wow. Early, middle 1900s,
yeah.
right before. Wow.
And there was one guy who was working like loading logs or something. He was a logger, and he was hit in the head by a piece of this heavy logging equipment. He was found dead, but another man was getting ready to go hunting, and so as he was going through his equipment outside, he was attacked by something. His hunting dogs were out with him, and they chased it away, and he lived long enough to tell everybody, I was attacked not by a bear, but by Nantinak, by this big hairy man, and he died shortly after that.
Do you remember the Native American tribe that calls it Nantinak?
Here's another one of these times where guys, DJ and Keith Seville, please forgive me, Alatuk. So,
hey,
but yeah,
we're all colonizers. We're all white Americans. We're not very good at this stuff. I understand. And I don't even mean to say that. That's totally rude. But it's hard. It's hard to pronounce, words that we aren't familiar with. But that's really interesting to me because a lot of times in Bigfoot culture, culture, but they throw rocks, they throw sticks, they throw logs, like you said. I'm fascinated by it. With all of your research into the subject and talking to these different people and hearing these different stories, do you have a specific theory on what these things might be?
Yes, and here's where we all have a certain number of beliefs that seem contradictory, right? So I think there's a possibility it's a cryptid. That is an animal or something very close to man, genus Homo, that has survived the thousands of years and is still out there. Having told you that, some of these happenings attributed to it are not what you would expect out of any ordinary animal. So I think that there may well be some of these supernatural elements to it, or let's face it, paranormal is a word that means this is not normal. 200 years ago, electricity was paranormal. People didn't understand it, and they were afraid of it.
And now we control that shit.
So we think.
Yeah.
Just try and do your own home wiring.
Yeah, no, I know you can get killed doing that.
Yeah, but in this, if I can, this is the interesting thing about the limitations of Western society, white society, if you will, is we think everything has to be, quote, normal, not paranormal. And so one of the anthropologists had talked about in his journal, he was talking to one of the native people, and they were going over the list of animals together. And what was the native name for this animal? That Castor canadensis is a beaver. And so what's the native name for beaver? And they went down the list, and the guy said, but you're missing the following. He starts ticking off all these other critters, and the ones he was ticking off would also have not just regular animal powers, but they had what we would call magical powers. And so to a lot of the native people, there's no difference. What you call magic is just paranormal, or it's just something you don't understand.
Okay, I'm so glad. Yeah, I'm so glad you went to paranormal, because I was going to scream out aliens if you didn't go there. I've always thought that Bigfoot could possibly be an interdimensional of some kind or another, or an alien visitor of some kind or another, because I don't understand how this could be like a species of human or a species that we haven't found yet in all of our forests and all of the so many people go out into those forests every year. I think that these things come from another place. I'm not, sure of it, but you'd think if they were natural to this earth, and that this was their home, that we would have gotten better pictures. I mean, we have gotten some good pictures. There are some good pictures of Bigfoot out there, but you'd think we would have gotten some more. And there'll be nights where people will go out on a Bigfoot hunt. They won't get anything. They won't get anything for 5 days. And then suddenly they'll see strange lights in the sky and knock, 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 scream, scream, scream. So paranormal, alien, whatever you want to call it, I think Bigfoot probably is related to the paranormal nature, like you said. And also, this is what I find fascinating about you, Jeff. You're a historian. You're a military historian. You said you've spent 30-something years in the military, which makes you the kind of guy that I would think would be on that normal scale of like, I don't believe in this and that and the other. I just stay focused on what they tell me. But you believe in this stuff and you're interested in this stuff. And I find that honorable and fascinating at the same time, that you have the capacity for both brains.
Well, thanks. It was kind of interesting. Offline, you and I were talking about how did I become a military historian. And I actually petitioned the U.S. Army Center for Military History for recognition. I didn't take any special courses. I already had degrees. And so I supplied them with some serious essays, but also I had excerpts from my books. And one of my sponsors, who was an established historian, that was his nickname for me, was Ghost Guy. And so he was pretty open to that. I was able to believe in the paranormal and still keep my security clearance throughout this entire time. When I went into this, I was wondering whether or not that would be okay. But
honestly, I think
yeah.
it's your people that know more about this stuff than anybody else.
But not me.
Maybe not you, but the people with the top secret or whatever the highest clearance is, because nobody really knows. I know I know a lot of military people because I was on Star Trek, and Star Trek has either the 50% of the fan base is super liberal technology guys, and 50% of the fan base is usually military, dark ops, military industrial complex badasses. And I totally lost my train of thought. What was I talking about?
Military, Star Trek, people.
You were about to say Blackwater, I'm sure.
Yeah, for sure. We don't have to get into 9/11. Everybody knows. Everybody knows what happened there. But
just ask Charlie Sheen.
Yeah, just ask Charlie Sheen. He's winning. Okay, well, so let's talk about some other weird things. You also you showed me some pictures when you were sending me. Actually, why don't you plug a couple of your books? You've written Weird Washington, Weird Oregon, and I'd like to know some of the things that are in those books, where we could visit some of the things that you researched when you wrote those books, and then go ahead and pitch some of your other stuff and your website and such. We have it scrolling across the bottom, but
okay.
Horse's mouth is a good thing.
Sure. The Weird Books series. The shout out to two guys, Mark Moran and Mark Skirman. They published a monthly magazine called Weird New Jersey. This is a couple decades ago. And after a couple, and it was all odd and unusual in New Jersey. And after
Jersey Devil and
yeah. And after a year or two, it was the highest selling monthly periodical in New Jersey, above any other monthly magazine you want to name. And so they got approached to put it together as a book. And then that sold really well. And the negotiations began, one book for each state. And so they ended up hiring me and a guy named Al Eufrasio to write the Weird Washington, Weird Oregon. And so it's 12 chapters, anything from cemeteries to local legends to roadside attractions, the biggest this or the cowboy boots that are 30 feet high, that kind of stuff, and ghost stories and serial killers and Bigfoot and UFO.
A lot of serial killers in Oregon and Washington.
Yeah, Ted
Green
Bundy.
River Killer, Ted Bundy, the Highway 20 guy. I don't know if they ever caught him.
One of the scariest was a guy named Billy Ghoul in the late early 1900s. He killed as many as 35, probably more. His target victims were all. This is a little different too. Were usually men, young men, and he was a union rep for the Fisher and Lumberjack Union in a place called Aberdeen, Washington. His office was on a pier above the river, and so he would kill his victims, open up the trap door, and dump their bodies down into the river. Oh, sorry about that. Too many hand gestures?
No. I was dumping a body down the river.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
crazy, though.
What was the Billy Ghoul?
Yeah, Ghoul, Gohl. So some people pronounce it Ghoul. And
Is his place still standing? Can you visit it? Can you ghost hunt it?
There is a place called Billy's Bar and Grill that had some association with him, but the spot where his office was, the pier's all gone now. But he ended up getting caught. They called them Billy's floaters when the bodies would get washed back by the tide, and that's why they don't know how many people he killed. And but he identified one of the bodies where he shouldn't have known the guy, and that tripped him up. But he ended up eventually going to an insane asylum in eastern Washington, and that's where he died. But yeah, so 35 plus bodies attributed to Billy.
Bet there was a lot more if this was the 1800s, because get away with a lot
you
more.
find 35, you probably have 150.
Yeah.
So Chris, I'm cutting you off. You had a couple questions. Do you want to ask Jeff?
Oh, yeah. I had one question. I was watching this documentary on Sasquatch. It was back years ago. And from what I remember, they saw Sasquatch, and Sasquatch ran, and they chased after it, and they found a hair on a bush or something, took it in, had it analyzed, and it did not come back as human. Any clue?
Or as anything else.
Right. I just remember that
I saw this too.
Yeah. Do you remember? You have a piece of hair, a couple pieces of hair. Was there a bulb on it? Like the little piece of skin at the end. Here's the thing: when you've just got hair without the bulb or the skin, it's a lot harder to identify genetics from it. And so, having said that, this will interest you guys. Maybe my master's thesis was on the Vikings in Greenland, and they had a farm compost heap dating to about the 1200s. The preservation on that was so good, we had human hair, and so freeze dried human hair, and so we could have actually done some genetic sampling had we the money. But
Is it expensive to do that? It's expensive to send out a genetic sample and have it tested. I mean, where would you send that to?
There are all kinds of labs. No, probably commercially. A lot of like medical colleges have the technology. Let's face it. Some of these CSI labs, and depending on the kind of tests you want done, it can be really expensive or not so expensive. I mean, which is why Ancestry.com or those various things, you can get a complete genome for what, $150? But that's different with a bunch of spit rather than a piece of hair.
And you need the bulb. If you don't have the actual bulb that was plucked from the scalp, it's difficult to actually.
Yeah, because you just got the proteins, not necessarily the DNA as part of the hair.
Okay, and I also saw when you sent us some pictures. Cassie was going to run them while we were talking, but I saw you at Stonehenge. So what's your there's a picture of you at Stonehenge.
Yeah, and this is so typical. I got my mouth open and I'm pointing.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're probably saying something. That is the rock that I walked through back to 1822. No, I'm just kidding. But what's your deal on Stonehenge? Is it a clock? Who made it?
It's
Is
it,
it
it's
a clock for the heavens? What do you think it is?
it is. Stonehenge is remarkable for a couple things. One is, to the best of the archaeologist knowledge, it's the only stone monument. See, a henge is actually the ditch work. You dig a ditch, you throw the dirt up, and that's a henge. The stones are that kind of addition to it. So Stonehenge, it went through multiple phases, and the one that we're most famous with is the later phase where they had all the upright stones. But it's the only Stonehenge monument that had the lintels. All the other ones had uprights, but to the best of everybody's knowledge, there were no capstones. So that's the only one. And what's also interesting is some of these henge monuments and Neolithic stone monuments we think were lunar calendars. They track the motions of the phases of the moon. Stonehenge is capable of tracking solar changes as well as lunar changes using the same set of stones. So those things really make it most unique. And I went to grad school in England, and so we did make a couple trips down when I first got there around basically Neolithic southern Britain, and we did get to walk in amongst the stones. It is possible even now. You have to like pre-register, and they allow people in before they open. So like at twilight to the opening time, or after they close before the sun goes down. I think is as many as 20 people can walk in and among the stones.
Be somebody a little special, have a little cash, and file for the permits.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you're not allowed to touch anything.
Yeah, don't touch the rocks. Unless you want to get transported back to whatever year. And being in the 1700s wouldn't be any fun, I'm telling you.
No.
I have a question.
There's no medicine.
Sir.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Jeff. What are your thoughts on the I'm not pronouncing this right, but we all know what it is. The Akanakama, whatever it is, device. That thousands of year old device.
Antikythera. No, the Antikythera device.
Thank you. Yeah. Thoughts?
What's this? I've never heard of it.
Ooh, it is so cool. It is so cool.
Yeah, it is.
It was found in the waters off of Greece. Antikythera device, and that's the island near where it was found. And basically, we're not 100% sure what it was, but it's a series of metal gears. They're not
Like
even sure because of the corrosion.
Like a wind-up watch. Yeah.
Sort of like a really complex wind-up watch. If you've seen where you have wind-up watches or clocks that not only do the phases, like the number of hours, the number of days, but they will also do the phases of the moon, as well as the alignments of the stars in the zodiac. So this device, we think, was capable of some of that, but they're like gears within gears. So it was a mechanical computer with all these gears that would turn. You would wind it up, and you probably navigate with it too. If you looked and found the phases of the stars with the device, you could probably guess where you were at sea or on the land.
Right. I was thinking that what you would do is you would wind this thing up, and then you would have a bezel, and then you would set it to whatever it needs to be set to, and then it
And
would
how old
calculate
is this thing?
thousands.
Yeah, maybe. And here's where you got something that's buried in the ocean for a couple thousand years. I've heard estimates from 500 BC to 300 AD, so about 2,000 years plus.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
they found a couple of
How have I
similar.
never heard of this?
In part because they didn't know what it was.
When did they find it?
The 1930s, but it was all encrusted
And
with
what's it called again?
Antikythera.
The Antikythera device.
I think I saw that on Ancient Aliens.
Probably.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
this gets to, we're talking
Found
somewhat
under
about.
the water off of Greece in a shipwreck of some kind.
Yes. And somebody was thinking that they put it in a metal box, and yes, they had cranks and they wound it, and they would wind it to where some of these settings would change. So like a sextant is a more modern naval device for determining, I think it's your latitude and or your longitude, and it's a series. You've seen pictures like of 18th century sailors where they're looking up at the sun and they got this kind of half crescent device. Yeah. And so this one would be on steroids. They found what they think
It's
are
like
a
an
couple
Apple Watch to the sextant.
Yeah.
It's like finding a turbine engine inside Tutankhamun's tomb.
All right.
Yes.
So this man here, Jeff Davis, also is a military historian, and we're running out of time here. And he's also served in the military for decades, I believe, in the reserves and
Active duty. Yeah.
active duty. So he told me some things that he can't talk about. I mean, he didn't share any really great secrets or nothing, but I'm going to try to get him to while we're on live air.
I'm not going to jail for you, man.
I didn't figure you would, but did they share with you any of the ships, any of the real tech that we have? Or did you hear whisperings of the real tech that we have? Because I read a book by Leslie Keene about the history of Area 51. And I know back in 1950 something, we had a SR-71 that actually had a drone on top of it, that the drone could be launched to go over the Soviet Union. And this thing could go balls out in 1950. It's 75 years later, and we're still driving around in cars with gasoline. So something is wrong. Something is weird. Do you not find just that information strange that we don't have? I mean, the space shuttle was retired, for instance. Why would they do that if they didn't have something better?
As far as the space shuttle goes, the workings of the mines in Washington D.C. and Cocoa Beach, Florida, are beyond me. Why do they cancel some programs? Why do other programs that many people think we shouldn't have, do they get funded? Fortunately, because I was in the Army, not in the Air Force, SR-71 and Area 51. I never had anything to do with that kind of stuff. Totally different branch of the Department of
Did you
Defense.
ever get to see any special toys that we haven't heard of? Just a yes or no question would be all right.
No. I saw some what some people would probably be a little put out at, but the height of their technology, Barrett sniper rifle. An amazing device in the hands of somebody who's a skilled shootist.
Is that a 3-mile shot, 2-mile shot? Like that?
Yeah. And you know what? That's old technology, but it's
super old technology,
still good technology.
kick-ass
Well,
technology.
I should say good. It's technology that still works and can't really be improved upon.
Yeah.
Yeah. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
If it's not a laser or a sound device, we had those airplanes on the 757s, and I know you were in the Army, but they had these lasers that could shoot down planes from 300 miles away. Little laser tipped. I forgot what they were called, but I mean, this is a fact. You can look this up. This is declassified tech. And I'm thinking, if we had those 20 years ago, what kind of tech do we have now out in space? And I just don't buy it that we're stuck with rockets still.
I actually, I wonder about that myself. Because I am older. We were all talking about our aches and pains, but I grew up on science fiction that had people written in the 1950s that had people on the planet Mars by the 1970s. And so where does that technology? Well, why can't we use the technology that existed then to take us to those places now? I don't see very many practical reasons. I'm not an astrophysicist, but don't those technologies work?
Yeah, and
probably so, and I'm willing to bet
share this
your
with you. Our listeners have heard this a million times, but when I was 30, I was at a dinner with Buzz Aldrin, and I was sitting right next to him because it was a Star Trek event for Nichelle Nichols. And I started to just touch him and think of ways to high five him because I was like, this man has been to the moon and it's as close as I'm ever going to get. So I started asking him questions, and Buzz Aldrin himself
He
told
saw
me,
UFO. Yeah.
yeah, he told me that alien aircraft followed him to the moon and back, and that he was on his way to NASA with Nichelle Nichols to try to convince NASA to get the program going to get us colonized on Mars, because he figured in his mind that as soon as we had a multi-planetary system, that we were multi-planetary instead of just a one planet species, that these things would talk to us more than they have. And when Buzz Aldrin told me that at 30, that's when I became a conspiracy theory UFO nut, because I'm like, the man that went to the moon told me aliens followed him there. I better look into this.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. I first heard as a kid Buzz Aldrin talk about that when he was guest star on an episode of the Brady Bunch.
Really?
I remember.
Yeah, Bobby.
I remember that. Yes.
Yeah, Bobby dreamed about UFOs, and Buzz Aldrin came and talked to him about it.
I remember, dude. I remember when Brady Bunch came on Friday night at 7:00, and then it was followed by the Partridge Family.
I even had those
Yeah.
Brady Bunch trousers too, with the bell bottoms with all the colors. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's awesome.
And have you seen all the footage too? Just the NASA footage of the guys up there on all the different Apollo missions that are like, whoa, what was that? What's flying over? What do you see that light? What is that? Have you seen all that footage?
I've not seen all of it, but I would not be surprised.
Yeah, and it's not just us. There's a few of those astronauts that have come out and said that they saw things that they explain.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Manu, we got a few callers lined up.
Yeah, we want to take them because the show's already 1 minute overtime. So let's let them ask Jeff some questions here, and we'll see you next week.
So,
who do you got?
We have a very special caller for somebody who's actually never been
Is it Bigfoot?
a caller
No way.
in this manner.
Oh God.
You're alive.
Oh man, we're all
Oh,
jumping
hey,
around.
it's our
Wow,
co-host. It's our
Tyson.
co-host Tyson Strasberg. He's alive. Bigfoot didn't kill him.
broke us.
Bigfoot
I am,
He has
and
not
it.
been abducted by aliens.
Did Tyson survive the
actually-
probing?
I did. Well, if I'd have only been probed, mind you. I actually laid down a couple hours ago to take a quick nap, and I woke
I knew
up
it.
for the first
I knew
time in my life. I woke up and I'm like, 45 minutes after showtime, and believe me, I ran to the house and I gave. By the way, my brother-in-law is watching this.
Tyson.
Hi, Javi. Wake my
Hey,
ass up if
Javi.
it's 6 o'clock.
What's that?
Tyson's never missed a show. Not once.
Never missed a show.
I've missed like 16 or something. Tyson has never missed a show. So
Not,
We're
no,
not-
never.
we're-
But he did kick me once.
we are
so.
not mad at you, but you could have been probed. You were asleep. These aliens have all sorts of technologies. It could have even been Bigfoot that probed you.
I'll take any excuse that doesn't make it my fault.
Fair.
Yeah, and I do apologize. And I was looking. Jeff and I had texted each other the other night and sent me some beautiful pictures from Alaska. By the way, just beautiful. I don't know that I could deal with that. And we were talking about circadian rhythm. When the sun doesn't completely go down, it doesn't get pitch black, and the sun comes up. I mean, for the first time in a long time, I actually took a nap while the lights were on. But otherwise, day night. I have a circadian rhythm. I sleep and wake to. But in Alaska, and then I have to think if Sasquatch is a biological thing, its circadian rhythm must be attuned to where it's from, whether it's Alaska, whether it's Washington. I even heard in Washington, Mount Rainier and around that area that There's been sightings of, there
All
must
over
be
the
some.
world. All over the world.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Wait a second. This is another question I wanted to ask you. Did you know something about the Asian exploration of Alaska? Early
Yeah,
exploration.
the monk Huey Shan, and he was searching for the land of Fusang, and was it the 4th century A.D.? The Chinese emperor uh, gave, gave him a fleet, and he sailed, we think, on the trade currents. You'd never sail directly east-west from, say, Los Angeles due east and try and land into China. There's a trade current that from North America, Baja California, and the peninsula, it will go south and then it will curve and come back up and drop you off like in the Philippines, and then you can follow that all the way up into the Arctic and the Aleutians, and then you come back down on North America on the other side. And so Huey Shan got permission to take an expedition, and he claimed to have found Fusang. And so there are scholars who are trying to figure out where in North America did he land to find Fusang. Among other things, he actually talked about what some people interpret as New World monkeys, because if I'm remembering, they had prehensile tails, which they do in Latin America. And various people believe that they found Chinese coins that were very, very old, and they think that was left behind by that expedition.
Where were those coins found?
Uh, Here's off of the southern Oregon coast, I believe. But,
Okay. How old were the coins?
here's where I know less and less. They just said ancient, and this is
Ancient is ancient. Hey, I have a coin because Cassie showed me his that is like 300 AD. It's a denarii from Rome. They're very common actually, but they are they're worth like $100. But it's pretty cool to have something that old in your hand.
Yeah.
I have a couple more questions for you, and then I'll let our guests take over. You went to the Lizzie Borden house.
Yes.
And you said you had some experiences there. Could you share those?
Yeah, absolutely. The house where Lizzie Borden lived with her sister and her parents, or father and stepmother, died is in Fall River, Massachusetts. And when I visited, it was a bed and breakfast. And concurrently, they do, go figure, they do murder house tours. And had we been there like on a Saturday, they also brought in a medium, and they had seances.
Ooh.
Now, Mr. Borden was murdered on the ground floor in what we would call the front parlor, and Mrs. Borden was making up the best guest room on the second floor. When she was murdered, she was struck from behind with an axe so hard she actually had a hairpiece. It was a braid. And it knocked that off her head. She was hit so hard. And so when we were there, there's talk about if conditions are similar to like when a battle takes place, if it was a rainy day, in rainy days, it tends to recreate itself. And this was a very warm time period when we were in Fall River. And the murder happened during the middle of a heat wave. I think for Fall River, Massachusetts, I think like 85 degrees was a heat wave. But they ended up, what ended up happening is my wife and I did get the room where Mrs. Borden was killed. And so one of the things they had up there, they had some memorabilia. They had a dress worn for Elizabeth Montgomery did like a mini series of Lizzie Borden in the 70s. And the actress Katherine Hellman from Who's the Boss was her sister, and they had Katherine Hellman's dress on a mannequin in the room. And so we were up there, and I was taking pictures all over the place with my digital camera. And when I tried taking a picture of that mannequin in the dress, the camera auto shuttered, and so I went and looked through memory, and it didn't actually take a picture. It just auto shuttered. And yeah, and it continued getting even weirder. I tried like just touching it just maybe I'm pushing too hard, and it auto shuttered again. And then I turned it off. I even took the battery out and shook the battery and put it back in. It was still auto shuttering. And then my wife said, Abby, Mrs. Borden, please let Jeff take a picture. And then she nodded at me, click, 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 and I got pictures.
Oh, wow.
That's
cool.
awesome.
Did you get anything in the pictures?
No, sadly enough.
That would have been triple
But
whammy.
There
All
was a
right,
f-
so
yeah,
we have
go
a
ahead.
couple more guests. Tyson, entertain this man. I'm going to take a quick break. I'll be right back.
Well, Jeff, and I do apologize. In the 3 years we've done this show, I don't think I've ever fallen asleep during showtime. So I'm horrified. If you see me making faces, I cannot believe. And 8 other people live here with me. Nobody came and knocked on the door and woke me up. Hey, Tyson, showtime.
Yeah, you
While we're
scared the
watching
crap
the
out of us,
show.
man.
Usually people fall asleep in the middle of me talking, not before I start.
Wow, that is just it's gonna be a scar that I have on me. But
Up next,
that said,
we have Zach.
Zach,
thank you. Now, Zach, you're really good with cryptids, because I know we had a conversation a couple of weeks ago about that. What's your question for Jeff?
Actually, pertaining to Bigfoot, I know, I think NASA actually admitted that tunnel vortexes on Earth could potentially exist. I think in 2015 or something. I actually just brushed up on this not too long ago and relearned it. And with the tracking of a lot of the Bigfoot footprints, a lot of times when they're spotted, they kind of start, but
They
from where
disappear.
from where they end up ending, and they just end, and there's no trace of anything. So could there be a chance that maybe these tunnels could be some sort of multi-dimensional thing, or maybe that's the Bigfoot coming? Or
As a matter of fact, one of the things they did find in Portlock was they had what they called the scary tree.
Mm-hmm.
And that seemed to be the focus of a lot of things. And there were guests who made it out there. As a matter of fact, one spirit medium was actually chased away. She barely got out of the helicopter before she said, "I got to go." But that was their belief, was that scary tree was kind of a focus of it. And as you said, tracks were around that area and didn't seem to be, going further in. And somebody had suggested that it was some kind of a portal. And the anthropologist in me draws these parallels. In ancient Greece, they had what they called dryads. And these were supernatural beings. That was the animistic, the spiritual intelligence of the individual tree. And they were set to guard those trees. But they could come out of the tree in kind of human form. And so if you really want to think about it, maybe this is a phenomenon that other cultures around the world have seen, but they didn't use the same terminology to describe it. If that
They
makes
didn't call
sense.
him Bigfoot. I mean,
No.
we had, they've seen him in Nepal. They've seen this thing in Antarctica. They've seen this thing in a lot of different places, right?
North Carolina.
It's not just
Yeah.
northwestern United States.
I have a question. Did the footprints, were they solid footprints and then just stopped, or did they get lighter as they?
There would have been solid footprints, and in some cases they lost them because they were in the mud or soils that they could, that were liable for tracking. But then they would go. In some cases, they did end around. You can get too many footprints to tell where they began and ended, but a lot of the traffic was around the scary tree. In other cases, they were tracking something on the trail in the mud, and then the footprints would disappear. And a practical explanation could be they were now on rocky soil, and also the kind of the muskeg, the moss would spring back. So those are 2 or 3 different explanations that the soil was too hard, the muskeg sprang back, or it really did walk to a certain point and then simply disappear from this dimension. I'm open to all 3 as possibilities.
Yeah, Jeff early on brought up the term paranormal before I did, so I was very happy with that. He's the Bigfoot expert, so when he said paranormal and the possibility of these things being paranormal, I was very happy, because I just don't see how they could be native to Earth unless inner Earth is real. And nice shot of their footprints, and they have some way of like getting inside the planet or whatever. But I tend to think interdimensionals of some kind, or spirit creatures of some kind that can travel between this dimension and others.
Yeah, the more.
Can you guys hear me?
Loud and clear.
Oh yeah.
Sorry.
Hunky dory.
One of the more biologist explanations for what is Bigfoot is they're in the fossil record from Asia. They have found some bones, what they call Gigantopithecus. That is more of an ape-like or gorilla-like critter that may have stood 7 feet tall. And so one of these explanations is that they did not die out millions of years ago, and that they ended up migrating through Asia all the way to North America. Here's an interesting thing. What we know about Gigantopithecus is based on some teeth and a couple of jaw bones. They actually didn't find the long bones. What they did is they took the jaw and then built the creature from the jaw outward. So it's suppositional too, what those things look like.
Wow. Wow.
Well, a question on that though is they were I'm not even gonna butcher
Gigantopithecus.
Yeah,
Big ass people.
They were gorilla.
Big ass people.
What we know about gorillas is just like with most of the apes, they're not stand up upright. They're on all fours, and Bigfoot, Sasquatch is standing upright. So how do we explain that?
Yeah. Is that true?
That's
yeah.
That is a great set of points. That again, this is where you then talk to somebody who is hardcore. It's like Gigantopithecus. Again, you have some creatures are knuckle walkers, others are palm walkers, and others walk on the back of their hands. And they can, all of them, stand upright like us, but only for short periods of time and short distances. And so when you have the Gigantopithecus jawbone, again, you're kind of inferring, and all of this has to where the spine goes into the skull itself and centers, and where it's kind of centered in. And that's all inferred about Gigantopithecus. It could have been a creature that did walk on 2 legs just like us, or Zach had pointed out, it could be some kind of another hand walker. Don't know.
Have you ever seen those pictures of the giants of like 1940, 1920, 1910? The Masons, those big giant men that were like towering over the rest of us. You ever seen those pictures?
By Mason, you mean family or stonemasons?
Stonemasons.
Trying to be funny. I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry. No, yeah, they were well, for some reason these giant people that they have pictures of that were huge, like way bigger than Shaq O'Neal, or these guys were big, and they have all these pictures of these people existing back in the day.
Living?
Yeah, they were alive when they took the picture. There's this, there's this crazy theory about a mud flood, and we're getting off the rails here, but a mud flood that we every 200 years or every 180 years, they basically rewrite history, erase us all, cause a mud flood, and somehow these Masons and giants were a part of it. But what I was going to say were these people that they've taken pictures of, that these really tall human beings. My only theory was that they I thought everyone would have seen these pictures, so I guess not everyone has. You know what? I'll look one up.
I thought you were talking about like the giant skeletons that have allegedly been found.
No, no,
Like,
no,
you know,
no, no.
12, 14 feet tall. You know, you see those pictures on Facebook and shit, and you can obviously tell some of that's photoshopped.
Yeah, no doubt.
But
There's also the stories
I'm
how
not
the Smithsonian steps in and we'll just take this to the Smithsonian, and you never hear about it again.
yeah, he's throw it in the back room.
Go ahead, guys. I'm gonna find pictures of the giants. We probably have another question. Has Dave come on yet?
We have Dave.
Let's have Dave talk about what he wants to talk about.
Hello. Glad to talk
Dave
to you in person.
Hildebrand.
Was
Yeah.
What's up? And since I guess I might be the last caller, we never did a proper like what's up for you. Since Chris was
And I'll follow with my version of the commercial. How are you?
How are you? We did.
I like that.
We did
I
it
like
in the
that.
beginning. All right. I got some pictures. I'll find the good ones. Go ahead, Dave.
See, I mean, there's a lot of great stuff in your Weird Washington book, and say one of the ones that really kind of like hits home is like the Maury Island incident that happened predates Roswell.
Yeah.
See, what can you tell us about that?
Hold a second. I think that's a trick photography.
Yeah, I think so too. So I just wanted to show it because it looked like a Bigfoot.
Okay. So
It looked
Maury
like a
Island
model.
incident, absolutely predating Roswell. See, Roswell and these it was like the summer of 47, wasn't it?
47.
That we had all these UFO incidents take place all over this one summer. The phrase flying saucer was actually coined based on a man named Arnold, who was flying over the Cascade Mountains, saw some UFOs, and they ended up describing them as being saucer shaped. And that's where we get flying saucers. So that's in Washington State. Maury Island, which is in the Puget Sound, after World War II, trees for lumber were kind of in short supply. And so there are all these log jams in the waters of the Puget Sound, and they would be taken off to the mills. And occasionally, I've not seen that, but that is interesting.
Okay, so dudes like this, that's an average human being, and these guys existed early 1920s, 1800s. A lot of folks like this. I'll show you some more pictures.
Yeah. Okay. Back to Maury Island. Anyway, there were these entrepreneurs who were on these boats that would go out into the Sound to get some of these logs, escape the log jams, and there was kind of like a bounty from the mill to bring them in. So some of these guys ended up seeing a donut-shaped UFO up in the sky. They saw a couple of them. One of them was a little bit lower, and it ended up having trouble. And a second one came down. They touched. It hummed, and the first one seemed to gain power, but it dropped out of the center all of this molten metal, and it landed some of it on the boat. And according to them, it killed like their dog. But they picked up some of the metal. And they ended up calling the FBI, as well as the U.S. Air Force sent some investigators from Hurlbut Field in California. So they flew up and they interviewed the ship's crew, just like the FBI did. And on the way back to Hurlbut Field, they were flying out in a propeller-driven bomber by night. They had problems. And this is around the Centralia, Washington area. The plane crashed. So blame has been attributed for the crash to either a UFO coming down or the Men in Black. This is also the first appearance of Men in Black in the annals. And there's no doubt the plane crashed, and the pilot and co-pilot died. And so the Air Force came out, and according to some people, they took the black boxes full of the metal, Other people say not, that they came out and took the bodies in the bomber site off the plane. And so it is one of these, like 3/4 of all the interesting UFO stories. Where do you separate fact from speculation from outright fiction? And it's people are still arguing about it. Interesting.
Big people.
Yeah.
So my only point was these big people could have snuck up to northern Washington, took a little tromp in the woods, got some,
What was that one picture
whacked
that
some
you showed?
trees.
Manu, was that one picture that you showed? Was that Robert Wadlow?
Yes.
Okay, I thought so. Yeah,
But
Yeah,
no, go
But
ahead,
there were a
Greg.
bunch of guys like that back in the day. The Giants have sort of kind of been, they're not as common as they used to be. You know, we had like, what was the basketball player for the Houston Rockets, Zhao Jing or whatever his name was? He was a big guy.
Yao Ming.
Yao Ming, sorry.
yeah.
I can't believe Dave knew that, and I
I was a sports reporter for 5 years, so I
Sure
know
that.
random shit like that.
Yeah,
Well,
Kareem
just like
Abdul-Jabbar, isn't he what, like 7'2"
yeah.
or something?
So guys, I find, like, I'm fascinated, and Jeff, I really thank you for joining our show. I want to do another show with you if you'd be kind enough on military history and some of the other topics that you know a lot about. And Dave, I'll give you a chance. I'm not going to end the show. I'm going to end it soon, but I won't cut you off. This guy's phenomenal, and I think we just cracked the iceberg here, and we're already 26 minutes overtime. I don't want to take his whole night. Our show is supposed to be an hour, so I'll let you get the last question in, Dave, and then Jeff, if you'd come back, I'd love to have you again.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
Well,
Cool.
first off, I mean, if she's watching, Beth, thank you for introducing me to Jeff, because it's just like this has been like far beyond what I expected. So yay for that.
Thank you, Beth.
But I want to talk to you about Starvation Heights,
Oh,
where you actually went with Whisper, which I was a member of until I moved here to Colorado. So, but I mean, just like that's like just right before my time, and I just like that is something that's like, oh my God, I wish I could have gone.
yeah, Starvation Heights. I'll tell you what. There's the author of the book Starvation Heights. If you're interested, he'd be somebody to talk to. Starvation Heights combines pseudo medicine with embezzlement, with probably murder, and the fanaticism of a cult. There was a woman named Elizabeth Hazard who her cure for anything from the megrims, migraine headaches, to cancer was a starvation diet of about 1 cup of pureed tomato soup a day and 2 or 3 mile vigorous walks and massage and enemas. And she set herself up as a naturopathic surgeon. And we don't know how many people she killed, because she didn't have a medical degree, but she signed the death certificates, and everybody seemed to die of natural causes under her care. Right after her husband entered the wills. Oh, by the way, he had been jailed for forgery before, and so everybody seemed to leave their money and property to her. And so she had at various times she went to jail for this. She took on 2 clients who were very well to do, and they were British subjects, and so the British consulate got involved when one of them died, and she might not have gone to jail other than that, because she would have kept on going. She lived in Kitsap County, very, very rural. You mind your business, we'll mind ours. And she just had this little cabin-like house, cottage-like house, that she charged people to stay up in the basically the daylight attic, and that's where she kept them as she slowly worked the cure on them and killed them.
And where's this? Where was this?
Olalla, Washington.
Yeah, Olalla, Washington,
just south of Bremerton.
Wow.
And she went to jail, and she got out of jail after a couple of years, and she went to, I think it was either New Zealand or Australia,
and did it again.
Yeah, and here's the interesting thing. She then took all the money she earned down there. She came back up to her property in Alala and built a much larger sanitarium building. And according to some people, the authorities were watching her, and so nobody died. Well, not too many people died under mysterious circumstances, but
Not too many.
yeah. The author of the book Starvation Heights is a guy named Greg Olson. I think you'd enjoy having him on the program too, because
Absolutely.
just like serial killers, we got so many bizarre things happening in Washington State.
How crazy is it that we do a show called Dangerous Thoughts and we've never done a show on serial killers? I mean, that's pretty crazy. I've always been fascinated by serial killers and psychopathy and social. Is it psychopathy?
Psychopathy.
No, psychopathy, sociopaths, and why they happen, how they happen.
Sociology.
Crazy people.
Hey, we talked a little bit about sociology tonight.
And I actually just got a Facebook message from Beth. She is watching, so I'm all goosebumpy now.
You're like a super fan, Dave. You're a super fan. You're geeking out.
Yeah, I'm geeking out.
But
You're totally allowed. You're totally allowed.
Oh, yeah.
I did do a visit to Starvation Heights with a clairvoyant friend. I used to, when I write like regional books, oftentimes I'm not psychic at all, but I go with people who have shown to me that they have some kind of clairvoyant insights. And I told her nothing about the building or went on there. And we got in there and she was on the ground floor, not even in this attic apartment. And she started crying uncontrollably. She was sobbing. And she said, I see people on this, there's like a shelf on this off the stairwell. And she said, I see people here. They're I can't get them to move on because they're waiting for her to come and tell them to move.
Oh my God.
And bear in mind, she knew nothing about Elizabeth Hazard, but that was the thing, is talking about a cult, is she seemed to exert this influence on her patients. Any of them could have walked away. As a matter of fact, their little power walks back and forth to the cottage, they turned around at the country store. They could have just gone in the store and said, take me home. But they walked back.
Yeah.
Yeah, they could have done any of that. Yeah.
Jeff, so when this weird Washington, this started where again?
It started in New Jersey, Weird New Jersey, Weird NJ. Yeah.
And did they do one on all 50 states?
Yeah, pretty much. I think they may have combined a couple, but these came out 2005 through 2008.
And how did they find you? Were you friends of these people, or how did they find you to write the Oregon and Washington books?
It was like having an audition where I didn't actually have to come and read, so to speak. I don't know sure where they heard about me, but they sent me an email and said, "Hey, we've got a book called Weird Hauntings. Would you contribute a couple stories?" That was my audition. I sent them a couple stories. They printed them, and about a month later, they came back and said, "Hey, would you like to be the principal author of Weird Washington?"
Awesome.
It was that simple.
Are you still active in the military these days? Are you a reservist, or?
I reached the mandatory retirement age, and so
they kick you out. That's ridiculous. Right when you get smart enough to help, they give you the boot.
Getting too damn old.
You know what? I finished up as a high level historian, and so I was working for general. So maybe it's just as well they forced me out. I don't think I would have lasted that long.
Well, I've really enjoyed talking to you, man, and I hope we get to do this again, because I think we've just scratched the surface of Bigfoot.
Yeah.
And I really want to do a program on military. How far back is your study into military history? Like to the beginning of mankind, or American history, or?
Well, it's interesting you say that. Depending on where I was, my assignments ranged from World War II in Europe to the Civil War to Custer's Last Stand, and my whole interest in the Vikings. So I'm pretty broad on this.
So you know a lot about the Viking raids and the different battles of the Vikings taking Paris or trying to, etc.
Yeah, I'd have to I'd have to swat up a little bit, but a couple of the stories, though, these apocryphal stories in Italy, one of them is supposed to have burned down a cathedral, but the cathedral wasn't built until like 200 years after the Viking Age. So I think,
Yeah.
But yeah,
Interesting.
there was Tony Curtis and Kirk Douglas, the Vikings.
Yeah.
I wanted to be a Viking after seeing that.
Yeah, of course. I watch all the Viking shows, and I even like the Viking graphic novels. So, if you had to roll the dice and you had to bet on what Bigfoot is, what is he? Her, it.
I'm gonna hedge my bets and wait for our series to be renewed. So everybody, watch Alaskan Killer Bigfoot. See if you like the show. These are real people. They're real Native Alaskans, real survivalists, and it's not fake. I think you guys will enjoy it.
And why do they call it Killer Bigfoot? Because of the previous murders in the area?
Yeah. It's also pretty easy to understand the kind of the premise for the show instead of Alaskan cuddly Bigfoot.
I'm actually going to go home and watch it right now with my lady. She loves all that stuff, and I love Bigfoot, so she loves all those History Channel shows. And what channel is it on?
It was on Discovery Plus, and Discovery merged with
History, which merged with
yeah. But
we'll find it. We'll find it. We'll search for it. We'll find it.
Yeah, there's an official fan page. It's still got 20,000 members on the fan page.
Cool.
You know, and that was one of the things I had to ask was, is it a hominid? Is it a primate? Is it real to begin with? I think there's just too much evidence that something's
out there, no doubt.
Right? Something's there. But whether it's humanoid
whether it's a
or
skinwalker or a Bigfoot or Jeff has come up with a number of different names for it tonight, with different tribes, different Native American tribes that have had different names for it. Something is there, and what it is, who knows? I'm sorry to cut you off, Tyson. You were talking, and I just jumped right.
No. You're exactly right. Or we've talked a lot on the show about it goes beyond cryptids to, are there more than one dimension on this plane, and are we seeing extraterrestrials that also, our minds tend to, when you look at the sky and you look at the clouds and you see an ice cream cone, or you see this, you see that, our minds tend to see things, right? So if we were seeing an extraterrestrial, would our mind go to, God, that looks like, what have I seen here on Earth? It looks like a primate. It looks like a humanoid. It looks like, and ascribe something to it.
And we do that. We call them insectoids. We call them grays. We call them, This has been very insightful. Thank you for spending your time, Jeff. There's been a lot of great comments tonight, and I've let them slip by. I hope people have at least read them while they were watching. I'll tell you what, it's not me. I wear a 9.5. So
8.5 for me.
Yeah, so I am not the man making.
I am the Bigfoot of this conversation with the whopping 12.5. Thank you.
12.5, Tyson. Holy moly!
I wear a
You
size
must have
10.
you must have something swinging between them legs that hits your knees.
All right. And I'm still going through a divorce, but okay, thank you. Yeah.
We love you anyway. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks for joining us. This
My
was
pleasure.
a great show, and I hope we see you another time soon.
I hope so too.
Everybody, thanks for watching Dangerous Thoughts. Thanks for our guests for tuning in, and we'll see y'all next week. Hopefully, we'll have Tim Russ from Star Trek on the show. I'm trying to get him, and he might be here. He might not. We'll see in a couple of days. See you guys later.
Bye.